Hello, my friends. Evolutionary Energy Arts family. I hope you guys are doing well today. So we have some information from geologists talking about where exactly the big one could happen next. And as we know, we have a lot of activity going on in this world right now with the advent of the grand solar minimum, with the magnetosphere in decline. We have volcanic activity moving along at an unprecedented rate in modern times. Unusually, we might think, that we've seen less great earthquakes since the beginning of this year than we usually do on average. But we've seen the increased release of energy in the form of volcanoes. Now, this doesn't mean that we're going to see basically a shortage of great quakes. There is pressure building, especially along the slow slip area that's going on between the Pacific plate and the North American plate. And so it's really only a matter of time as to when things shift, and we will see the big one, and we'll see a big Cascadian earthquake as well, and we're going to see some release in energy. And so we need to be ready and prepared for this, especially our people along the Pacific coast areas. So scientists have a better understanding right now of what's going on there in South California. And they have pinpointed exactly where they believe the big one, the new big one, will come. So as you know, there's an 800-mile long fault line. It's the meeting point of two tectonic plates, the Pacific plate and North American plate. The boundary is a hotbed of earthquake activity in the U.S., lying along the quake hotspot known as the Ring of Fire, which circles the Pacific Ocean. So now the experts think they know the specific section where the next major tremor will hit. And it's a 15.5-mile long formation dubbed the Pyramid Ladder. It sits at the southern end of the San Andreas Fault, and geologist Suzanne Janke believes the area could be ground zero for a massive quake. Dr. Janke, a professor at the Utah State University, and her team carried out a detailed study of the area and discovered the highly faulted ladder-like structure. The research revealed the Pyramid Ladder extends from the main line of the San Andreas Fault to a newly identified fault zone known as the East Shoreline. In this study, which was published in a peer-reviewed journal, Lithosphere, she said we now have critical evidence about the possible nucleation site of the next major earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. And here you can see a detailed look at that. And of course, I will have all the links for you guys to go ahead and check it out and get a good look at it. So the possible nucleation site was thought to be a small area near Bombay Beach, California. But our work suggests there may be an additional longer fuse south of the Pyramid Ladder within the 37-mile-long Brawley seismic zone. The research also predicted there's a 75% chance of a magnitude 7 or larger hitting both the north and south regions of the state within the next 30 years. But Dr. Janicki acknowledges it's not clear how the Pyramid Ladder interacted with past earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault. Because of this uncertainty, predicting the behavior of future tremors is made much harder, the geologist said. So this is just basically a heads up as to the likelihood of where we are going to see the epicenter, or a possible epicenter, for where the next big one will come. And this is a look at the area. You see the Salton Sea over here, San Diego, Chula Vista, Tijuana, the border with Mexico, LA up in here, Joshua Tree right above it. And if we look at what we see, this is obviously your Ring of Fire area, and of course we always have a ton of quakes all along California, as is the usual. And you see there's quite a few centered right here in that very region just above the Salton Sea. And again, that is to be expected, as we could see, how the fault line runs and all. And while we're looking, you can see some activity up towards Yellowstone. We see some fracking over here, as usual. The Madrid Fault, New Madrid Fault area. We do have one over in Carlisle, Kentucky, which is a little bit curious, but it can happen. And the thing that's been interesting is, like, you could get, especially in these times, you're going to get quakes in a little bit more unusual areas. And we've seen some really unusual ones in the Northeast and in other places as well. I mean, we see this one. This is 1.4, and it's 4 kilometers north of Coscop, which is around Greenwich, Connecticut. You got this one over in New Hampshire, 1.0. These along the St. Lawrence, we've seen these in this area. And then we have one over here above Cleveland, Ohio as well. So kind of curious, but exactly what we're going to expect to see as we get deeper and deeper into this grand solar minimum. You're going to see a lot of energy transferring out into the middle of plates. Otherwise, it's pretty typical. You know, you have a lot of activity going on up in Alaska as well. And the biggest quakes we're seeing are only in the 5s. So, you know, we have had a lack of 6s, 7s, and 8s for sure. And actually, I don't think we've had a 7 since either February or was that in January. I remember looking it up before. But we do have another 5.3, you guessed it, in Hawaii yesterday. So 5.3, 5.3, 5.3. And when we look at it, you know, what do you think is up with this? Do you really think Mother Earth is that exact? Is she just wanting to unleash 5.3 energy on a regular basis? Or is this just some sort of computer program? You know, is it likely it's going to be 5.3 every single day pretty much? You know, 5.2 here, a 5.4 there? I don't know. Is it just the way they're reporting it? We know we don't trust them, that is for sure. And this is what that Dermot ladder area actually looks like from the sky. And so is this the epicenter for the big one when it comes? Only time will tell. So we have severe storms, flash flooding in parts of Tucson, and we've seen this, about 1.5 to 2 inches of rain fell across the Oro Valley. Remember, turn around and don't drown. Don't do it. Don't drive through that puddle. Just don't do it. And we've seen storms everywhere. So severe storms causing flash flooding across the triangle, and that's up in North Carolina, the Raleigh-Durham Triangle. Cars drove through high water on Fayetteville Street. 2 cars colliding nearly. University Drive at South Street looked like a lake. According to a crew at the scene, owner of this gym is evacuating out some water, and this is just what we're seeing everywhere across the planet. Intense storms, flooding in places that don't usually, you know, get that type of flooding. Basically, any flooding, any area could be a flood zone the way that things are now. We had some really intense thunderstorms roll through here last night as well. And I did have some family members, you know, Evolutionary Energy Arts family members, sending me texts and stuff and saying, do you feel how strong those are? And I did a long meditation last night out there during the storms. And I've been able to, with my Qigong, sense the heartbeat of the earth itself. And that's what I was sensing last night, deep into my meditation, but I've never felt it like it felt now. It felt ragged, it felt irregular, it felt like there was earthquakes going on under my feet. And so I asked my friend that was here, you know, did you feel earthquakes when I was out there meditating? And, you know, they said no, they didn't notice anything. So I think it was just me being connected to the earth. But when you send your roots down from your bubbling wells, the K1 points in the feet, and you get really sensitized to the energy flow, you could actually tap in and feel the pulse, the heartbeat of the earth itself. And it flows, you know, in the case of last night, it was flowing so strong, it was not just going through my feet, it was going through my entire body, and I could feel it reverberating in my own heart and chest cavity, as well as going up into my head. And it didn't feel like it has in the past. It felt very, very ragged, very, very uneven. Almost like somebody running a temperature is what it felt like. DTE Energy, 9,000 customers without power due to the severe weather that we had seen over there And this is in Detroit, and it's not just Detroit, it's everywhere. The whole East Coast has really basically been getting hammered with severe storms and flooding. And that pattern is going to persist for a bit. 143 mile an hour fire tornado ripped through Reading during the Carr fire. So eerie when you see some of these photos. Pretty intense, pretty crazy. Obviously the air is unhealthy with all that going on. The air is unhealthy in Florida with the red tide and the algae blooms. And like we saw, there was an algae bloom in the Black Sea that was shaped like a hurricane from yesterday's video as well. It's just incredible what's going on right now weather-wise. And it just continues. And over here in the Korean Peninsula, now we were seeing this in other areas. We were talking about UK farmers. We were talking about South African farmers. The Korean Peninsula, heat wave causes unprecedented natural disaster, heavy crop damage. South Korea was battling intense heat in recent weeks as temperatures hit a record high of 40.3 Celsius on Wednesday in Hongcheong, in a town in the northeastern province of Gangwon. And according to authorities, more than 28 people have died there because of the heat. 2,266 have suffered heat-related conditions. More than 3 million deaths of livestock. And five-fold increase in the deaths from heat-related illnesses were reported. While vegetable prices have doubled due to supplies being affected. People crowd into Caribbean Bay swimming pool trying to escape the heat in Yongin, South Korea. Meanwhile, in North Korea, the temperature in Pyongyang climbed to a record high of 37.8 Celsius on Wednesday, with state TV warning it was taking a toll on the economy. And so, as we've seen, more crop failures, more crop damages, shortages are coming. We're already seeing price increases, and you're going to see sporadic shortages. Major shortages worldwide are coming. So today's reality is calling for every single individual across the country to join the struggle to contain the damages stemming from high temperature and drought, urging citizens to display their patriotic zeal and save every single dollop of water. This year's high temperature is an unprecedented natural disaster, but it's not insurmountable. And these are just the latest countries to set all-time heat records this summer. And so it continues. More than 150,000 evacuated as Zhongdari makes landfall now in Shanghai after going through the Japanese islands. And we've seen this, just one tropical storm after another, which has impacted the Pacific. And recently they just came out with a revised hurricane forecast for the Atlantic. And you know what? The Atlantic is abnormally cold. And so what you have is this competing thing going on where we have incredible record high temps right now. But the Atlantic Ocean is unusually cold. The Gulf of Mexico is warm and toasty, and but not the Atlantic on the whole. And so overall, we still are under the impact of a grand solar minimum that's just beginning. So all this heat is going to seem a faint memory in a few months. But ultimately, both extremes, and it's the extremes that are causing the damage. The extremes are giving us these issues, and the extremes are going to continue and get more extreme. And so that's what we have going on right now. So it was a typhoon, now it's a tropical storm, and it arrived in the Chinese financial hub on Friday morning, packing powerful winds. And more flooding is coming there as well. It's just what's going on. And if we look at sea ice thickness, now updated through August 1st, you could see the Arctic sea ice volume. So you look at the lines, 2015's over here, and then we have 2016, 2017, and then we have the average of 2004 to 2013. And now look at this line over here. That's where we are now, that black line, 2018, which is above all those years, above the average of 2004 to 2013. and 2014 was an abnormally high year, and it looks like it's paused to go above that as well. And then you'll see this probably track even higher. So even though we're seeing all this as far as these crazy heat anomalies going on, and as we were talking about before, if you watch the video where I was talking to Steve Olson from WSO, there's a lot of unusual things going on. They could be being caused by a lot of other factors, including the possibility of some other quote-unquote heavenly bodies in the neighborhood. And so, you know, you can't look at this as just global warming. You can't look at this as just being a grand solar minimum. There is way more going on now than just that one or two things. Global warming always ends up with onset of some sort of ice age, mini ice age, you know, something along the lines of a Maunder minimum. We're in the modern eddy minimum. Some call it Landscheid, and that's just part of the thing, because we are also in a magnetic pole reversal excursion, and we also are in this unusual part of the galaxy where there's these energies coming in that scientists have talked about, coming in from the core, the galactic center, and they don't know exactly, you know, what's going on with it. We do know, as we talked about the harmonic convergence, 1987, that basically a supernova exploded. You know, all the traditions around the world have known about these times. All of them have known about these times. And so we are living in the times that people talked about thousands of years ago. Well, you and I, we're experiencing these times, and this is just the beginning of these times. And so there is so much more going on than meets the eye. But you are informed. You guys know. And you guys are putting all the pieces together. And that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to put the puzzle pieces together and band together as a big family and try to not only survive these times, but thrive in these times and recognize the potential that is going to come from the changes that are occurring. Evacuations begin as Virginia Dam on the verge of collapse. And this is Lynchburg. A dam in Virginia could be on the brink of collapse, potentially flooding parts of Lynchburg with up to 17 feet of water. I've been through that area so many times. The Weather Service called for evacuations around College Lake Dam in Lynchburg. 124 residents had to be evacuated because of the threat of a breach in the dam. And as we can see, we've seen all sorts of collapses going on. We've seen all sorts of structures. We've seen buildings fall. We've seen so many roads destroyed. You can't keep up with it all in so many areas. Monsoon madness, huge wall of dust rolls through town. And this is in Arizona, Maricopa County. Monsoon storm hit the valley hard Thursday evening, bringing high winds, low visibility, and a massive wall of rolling dust coming from the south. And look at that. That is just epic. Right around rush hour, we watched as a huge wall of dust made its way, stretching from the Estrella Mountains and into Queen Creek and beyond. The National Weather Service meteorologist said blowing dust in the Phoenix area brought near zero visibility for drivers. This is one where we really can't see through it. It's pretty thick. Yes, as you can see. That is just amazing to see. And we have Hell on Earth. A little dramatic title there out of the Daily Star, but they are definitely dramatic. We know that. So, 50 degrees centigrade. Scorcher to blast Britain in hours as heat wave turns killer. As they say, it will be hell on earth in Europe tomorrow as boiling hot temperatures blast the continent into an oven amid terrifying red alerts. And there is one of those National Weather Service alert boxes here that has been going off like constantly. It's just constantly going off with a new alert after another. And that's what we're seeing everywhere. A furnace heat wave will send temperatures skyrocketing to a scorching 50 centigrade to eclipse melting Europe's hottest day ever on record. Searing hot African air will bake Spain with 48 centigrade, while Portugal cooks in a dangerous 122 Fahrenheit as authorities issue nationwide health warnings. And the scorcher will spread to Britain too, with knock-on effects of the heat wave sending the mercury into the mid-30 Cs. Next Monday could see temperatures soar past July 26's 35.3 in Faversham, Kent, making it Britain's hottest day for 3 years. Hot, hot, hot. Yes, it is. And as we have seen earlier, 148,000 are now displaced after record-breaking floods hit Myanmar. And before, when we were looking, I think it was only in the 50s, which is still a lot of people to be displaced and homeless. And now you have 148,000 after the floods there, with the heavy monsoon rains, and more rainfall is expected in the weeks ahead. And so you have a lot of temporary camps, you have a lot of displaced people around the world. There's tons and tons of refugees around the world. And as I said before, be so mindful of how you treat people that are refugees, because in this world, any one of us could be a refugee tomorrow. Any one of us. Think about how you want to be treated, because it might be you next, and I've always thought about it when I saw The Day After Tomorrow, and I thought it was just such karmic retribution, which the movie was pointing out, when all the people from the U.S. were flooding into Mexico to escape the cold, which something like that is probably going to happen. You're going to see people from Canada flooding into the U.S., people from the northern tier states flooding down into the southern tier states, and you're going to see a lot of people flooding into Central and South America as things keep going on. It's what's coming, and so be very aware of that. And all those people that were saying, we don't want to see no immigrants, we don't want to see no refugees, just be aware that it could be you tomorrow, and especially in this world that we live in now. So as we were taught in so many of the religious traditions, all the religious traditions have that teaching of helping others, having empathy for others, compassion for others, understanding. And as we've talked about, with Christ saying, if somebody wants your cloak, give them your tunic too. Unfortunately, not enough actually live that. They just mouth it without really feeling it. But we have to reach out to each other and become family more. Recognize we're all in this together. Arctic heat melts away Sweden's highest peak. And Sweden's highest peak, which was a glacier on the southern tip of the Kebnekaise mountain, is melting due to record hot Arctic temperatures and is no longer the nation's tallest point now. I have never seen this much melted snow on the southern peak as I did this summer. Gunhild Ninnes Rovsist, a Stockholm University geography professor, said in a statement. And so we're seeing rapid earth changes. And the food system is being impacted. The food chain is being impacted hugely. Think of all the red tide that we have going on. Think of, the red tide not only in Florida, but all the algae blooms around the world. We're losing fish and marine life at an unprecedented rate, really. It's been incredible. And we're seeing the crops damaged with hail and all sorts of severe weather, drought and record temps, you name it. And so the food is going to be an issue. And so, speaking of food, we have Chipotle illness. More than 400 report sickness after eating at Ohio restaurant. And this is in Powell, Ohio. And this was my Chipotle. I used to go here all the time, this exact one. And so it has reopened after it voluntarily shut its doors Monday. And they received 413 inquiries from customers who believed that the restaurant's food made them sick, said District's Public Information Officer Tracy Whitaker. Our staff has been fielding calls all day long yesterday, so what happens when we get calls is we have to follow up and investigate, of course. So the cause of the illnesses is still unknown. If everything went by the books, the health district would know the potential pathogen by Friday, but it never goes by the books, she said. Anyway, they're still investigating. They are reopened. They threw out all their food but they are back up for business if you're willing to venture. And interestingly, nearly 400 people ill from McDonald's parasite outbreak. And 109 additional cases, bringing the total to 395. Connecticut, Tennessee, Virginia patients bought bad salad in Illinois. Illnesses reported in 15 states, at least 16 hospitalized. Be aware of that. I don't eat at McDonald's, and I don't even eat at Chipotle anymore. Invasion of big, voracious lizards threatens the U.S. South. We've all heard about the big snakes, the big pythons down in the glades. Well, a group of South American lizards that can grow up to 4 feet long has established a home in Florida in the wilds after being brought to the U.S. as pets, and the reptiles could begin a voracious march across the U.S. South. And here they are, a black and white tegu lizard is shown in the Everglades. Tegu lizards, which currently live in 2 large colonies in Florida, could expand into an area from the Carolinas to central Texas, according to a new scientific report published in July on the Journal for Nature. They're voracious, omnivorous, predatory lizards that can live in a variety of habitats, but we don't know what's going to happen or how intense this invasion is going to become until the effects are upon us. And so right now they are basically down in Miami-Dade, and they're also in Hillsborough, home to Tampa. And so they've been setting up sites. They've been seen in other parts of the state as well, but primarily in those 2 areas. On private lands, Florida hunters without a license are allowed to kill tegu lizards if it's done humanely. On public lands, the state is trying to get rid of the lizards through the traps. The most important thing the public can do to stop the spread of non-native species like the tegus is to never release non-native animals into the wild. Don't let it loose. And I never feel good about seeing them hunt things like this, even when they're not native. Oh, and what do we have here? Newlyweds see an angel in the sky in Texas, and they knew everything will be okay. And yeah, that's not too hard to see, isn't it? Can you guys see that? So you have the head, arms outstretched, the wings, pretty cool. And we've seen a lot of wild things in the sky. We really have. And so this is Danny Ferraro and his wife Carmen. They were on their way to take care of some family business Monday evening, kind of dreading it, and then they saw something in the Texas sky that changed their perspective. Coincidentally, it appeared to the couple on the 1-month anniversary of their wedding. As soon as I saw it, I knew. We saw the cloud and the brilliant rays, and I told my wife it must mean everything will be okay. And yes, we do have help from the other side. And personally, I do believe in angels. So I had a bunch of people questioning dantians lately and chakras, and so this is out of Mind, Body, Spirit Odyssey, and it's a conversation with healer Darren Orr. And so when you study the healing process from a Taoist perspective, you study the 3 major energy centers, or dantians. When you study from an Indian perspective, you examine the chakra system, or even the microchakra system. Chakras seem to be the prevailing perspective that most people are familiar with. What is the difference between dantians and chakras? Do they complement each other? Does one act as an overlay for the other? Is one method more precise for healing than the other? And that was the question. Then Darren responds, the chakras come from the ancient Indian science of life called Ayurveda. They are widely known in America because they have been in the consciousness since the first yogis from India brought yoga into the U.S. in the late 19th and early 20th century. Buddhists also use the chakra system because Buddha was an Indian prince. A commonly known modern-day energetic practice with Buddhist connections is Reiki. But in both Hindu and Buddhist sacred texts, they do not refer to the sacred 3 centers within their understanding of the energy matrix. They call them Granthi. These 3 energetic or psychic knots that need to be united, unwound, and unbound before awakening can occur on a physical and spiritual plane. I'm almost positive there was a cross-cultural diffusion between the ancient Indian and Chinese models, which would explain why they have so many similarities. I find that they're very complementary, actually, and I'll go into a little more detail. The Taoists are widely known to utilize the three treasures of Jing, Qi, and Shen, located within the three dantians. For those in the West familiar with those terms, it comes primarily from the growing influence of medical Qigong and the internal martial arts. Many are unaware of Qigong because that name is relatively new. It just simply means energy work in Chinese. The word Qigong was coined in the 60s. Prior to that, for thousands of years in China, it was referred to as Daoyin, or Douyin. And Daoyin is how most know it as. I think what needs to be understood is that there's an energetic matrix. It is designed to be intertwined, interconnected, and interwoven like a spider's web. Think the tree of life and the flower of life. You know, there's so much to this. Again, as above, so below, and then the fractal nature of the universe. There's so many things. I wish more people would really watch some of my earliest videos that we get into all this in much deeper details. The different systems don't compete with one another. They complement each other to achieve balance, homeostasis, and health. One system is not the end-all and be-all, not the chakras, dantians, acupoints, marma points, zhangfu point organs, meridians, 8 extraordinary vessels, Lao channels, sinew, divergent channels, etc. It's not so much about their differences, but rather how they harmoniously communicate and integrate that's the most important, because it allows your physicality to be and you to live. The dantians and chakras are individual systems within the energy matrix. They work harmoniously with one another, like different physical systems of the body, such as respiratory and circulatory systems. The physical matrix can't be understood or diagnosed by studying one cell, organ system, or brain synapse, even though our Western medical model is set up that way, and we like to try it too. In my clinic as a doctor of medical Qigong, it must be taken into consideration how all different energetic systems interrelate and integrate with one another, and how the energetic matrix is influenced by that person's unique mind and their different life experiences. Both the 3 dantians and 7 chakras emanate from the Taiji pole, which is at the deepest energetic structure within the body. It's actually a hologram that reflects the divine within the center core of your body-mind. The dantians overlay, encompass, and are slightly deeper than the chakras. To use a metaphor, the chakras are like geysers that connect the external earth to the internal. The dantians are the deep internal reservoirs, or aquifers, and the Taiji pole is the emanating source. Both the 3 dantians and 7 chakras extend out from the center core of the Taiji pole through the body and out into the Wei Qi, the aura, or the energetic fields. Both systems can be palpated and used to assess what's going on with someone. Some break up the Wei Qi or the aura into 7 fields to treat, which I personally find too complex. In my clinic, Simplicity is Power, I utilize the depth and breadth of Taoist understanding of the energetic matrix by taking into account everything. I utilize the chakras and dantians as well as many other energetic systems. Most importantly, I intuitively use my Shen. Shen is spirit, and Shen resides in the upper dantian. It resides basically around the pineal gland. And when we die, whatever Shen is there goes with us. So the ultimate goal, again, is refining your Shen, building and refining your Shen. But as you do that, you do tend to get the benefits of abundant health and emotional stability. When treating, and how I sense it is that just like the interior, the dantians encompass the chakras with external fields. Assessment-wise, the dantians are more important because they are the reservoirs of your life force energy. If any are depleted, then treatment will be less effective, and healing virtually impossible no matter what energetic system is used. I'm a Reiki master and have experienced many different forms of energy work. For years before I became a DMQ, that's a Doctor of Medical Qigong, I worked on people just utilizing the chakras, but intuitively knew there was more than that. My search led me to Inner Strength and Formless Taoism, where I began my doctoral training with Dr. Ted Civic. And Ted, I have also studied under Ted Civic, and he's wonderful. And he is an amazing fountain of information. He will boggle your mind in 5 minutes with the information that comes from him. This man like understands the depth and the breadth of so much. He's one of the top authorities on this, without a doubt, in the U.S., the top 2 or 3 easily. And he has healed multiple people of stage 4 cancers and you name it. So anyway, going on, through medical Qigong and a living, breathing master, I truly began to understand the energetic matrix, not from an intellectual level, but from a visceral, experiential, and intuitive level. There is so much depth and breadth to it that boggles my mind and baffles me how someone can proclaim to be able to treat people energetically with an online course, a one-day class, or even 2-week intensive. It's simply impossible because it's a lifelong learning process of inner self-cultivation. In order to fully understand what you are feeling, you need to be a clear vessel and a channel, which requires a daily, dedicated, disciplined self-cultivation practice over many years before you're even ready to begin treating people. If one doesn't self-cultivate first, they will attract those who reflect their issues, and more seriously, they'll simply be transferring their deviated chi to the client, which is horrible for the client and harmful for the practitioner. So this goes on, and I'll have the link for you as always. And so, there's all different levels, and people talk about Reiki. Reiki is really, for the most part, it's a good place to start. It's just a start, though. It's really just a start. There is so much more to go into from there, and really the best thing is to study all the systems, as is saying here. Reiki is a great place for people to start, and then they might want to go and look into pranic healing, which typically gets you a little bit more in depth. But ultimately, medical Qigong is where it's at, and medical Qigong is the fountainhead of all the healing systems, really. You combine it with Ayurveda, and then you have a really good understanding. But it does take years and years and years. That doesn't mean that you can't simply learn a few techniques and help somebody. And everybody is different. Some people are super gifted and are natural healers. And in the past, many of these people have been called natural witches, quote unquote. And in our Western culture, that's been thought to be a negative thing. It just means somebody that has this innate ability to utilize energy and or medicinals in the form of herbs and as such in order to heal somebody. And so many people knew these things intuitively. And because they knew them intuitively, they've been persecuted by the powers that be for thousands of years, burned at the stake or what have you. Because what we have is a system that is so obviously built to control people's minds, pocketbooks, their time, their whole essence and their whole being. But in reality, we need to all become the masters of our own universe. And you're not going to do it without going inside. It's not going to happen. There's no way, shape, or form of you achieving anything without building a true practice where you go within, where you still the mind, you use other senses that are totally undeveloped in most people, and you start to sense the reality of the universe. And that's why some drugs are so popular, because they get people an easy out where they can actually sense that there's a lot more to life than what we see in this typical 3D reality. But, drugs are not the way to do it. You have to self-cultivate. That's the way. And start by actually learning about who you really are. And so the physical body is just one small part of who you are. It's a tiny part. When you expand your consciousness, you recognize that you are so much more than the physical body, so much more. And you start to sense the energetic bodies that you have and that you inhabit as well, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental bodies, the etheric, the astral. You are a much more powerful being that is experiencing reality on so many other levels than just simple waking consciousness all the time. And so this is something that gets you into it. So as we were talking about the three treasures, Jing is the physical essence, and that resides in the lower dantian, which is about 2 to 3 inches below the navel. And so you cannot be physically healthy without having a good abundance of Jing. Conversely, when Jing is overflowing, illness will not really be able to take hold of you. Sure, somebody could shoot you. You could be exposed to, some sort of toxin that would kill a horse, and yeah, it probably would kill you. But as far as bacteria, viruses, getting sick, getting cold, having autoimmune flare-ups, allergies, all those things, if you have an abundance of Jing, they're not going to bother you. It's not going to happen to you. And that's the first thing that you cultivate is Jing, and you get your lower dantian full. The middle dantian holds a pure form of qi, which is basically, that's your emotional center, where Jing and the lower dantian is all about the physical body. Jing and, qi and the middle dantian, which is located between the solar plexus chakra and the heart chakra, right in line in the male with the nipples, is that's the center of your emotional energy, and that's a form of pure qi. And if that is lacking, you may be lacking in compassion, you may be lacking in empathy and sympathy. You might not be able to feel all the emotions that somebody that was full of abundant pure qi would be able to feel. And also, you might not be able to control your emotions, and so you might have outbursts. You might be a negative person. You might be angry. There's so much more to it. But when your qi there overflows, generally you're tranquil, you're happy, you're calm, you're emotionally stable. And then the Shen. The Shen resides in the upper dantian, around the pineal gland, at the intersection of the crown chakra and the third eye chakra. And that's your spiritual center. And as Jing overflows and flows up into the middle dantian, so lower dantian overflows up into the middle, you've achieved physical vitality and abundant physical energy and abundant life force, bountiful health and well-being. It flows up into the emotional centers, where you end up being very stable, very at peace, very happy, very tranquil. And then it overflows and goes up into the upper dantian, and that's the ultimate goal, because that's refining spirit and building more energy in the upper dantian, which we carry from life to life with us. So that's something and a part of our evolutionary process that never goes away. So the more Shen we could cultivate, the more it's going to help us on our long journey that goes beyond one life. And that's all in Taoist philosophy, as well as in some other philosophies as well. So I hope that helps you guys understand things a little bit more. As far as energetically, how to make garlic oil for natural remedies, 9 amazing ways to use it. And this is something, besides tasting good and it's great in cooking, it is so beneficial in so many ways. Garlic is a blood purifier. It's been proven to bring down high cholesterol and blood pressure. It's been used as a traditional remedy for various things. Ingesting garlic oil can cure cough, colds, and ear infection. And so this is a no-brainer and something to keep in the house all the time. And if you have psoriasis, you could apply it directly onto the psoriasis, and it's definitely going to help with that. Garlic is universally recognized for its health-promoting benefits, aiding in circulatory and digestive systems, boosting the immune system, lowering blood pressure, fighting heart disease, even eliminates toxins. It can be consumed in many forms or even made into an oil. Garlic oil has been proved to bring down the risk of cardiovascular diseases by regulating blood pressure and high cholesterol. But it can be used as a remedy for a host of your regular day-to-day woes too. And here's some of them. Treats acne. It's an immune system booster. Relieves ear infection. Natural mosquito repellent. It could actually repel some possible suitors. Relieves toothache. Prevents hair loss. It also treats dandruff. treats itchy skin ailments, and it's a natural pesticide for garden pets. And just basically all you need is a clove of garlic and a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Peel it, mince it, transfer the garlic to a medium pan, add oil, warm the oil slightly, make sure not to overheat, and then collect it and then just let it infuse. And of course, you could add more to it if you prefer. So my friends, as always, please do thumbs up to support the channel, subscribe and join our family, and click the bell so you get all of the notifications. Double check your subscriptions as well. You guys are still telling me that many got unsubscribed somehow by accident and have not been getting notifications. And do share with as many people as possible. You know, put it out there, get it out there, get it onto places like Reddit, get it out into different forums so we could get people to wake up and realize everything that's happening and wake up to their potential too, and the fact that we need to become a family and we need to band together and become part of one greater whole, so that when we come out of this time and things get back to normal, the new normal is going to be a beautiful normal. It's not going to be the old normal that we've had in the past. It's not going to be a dysfunctional world and a dysfunctional society. It's going to be a world that's exhibiting unity consciousness, brotherhood and sisterhood in harmony with Mother Nature. And yes, we can do it. We have to visualize it first. It's all about visualizing, seeing, and knowing, and then it will manifest. My friends, may you be blessed with abundant peace, love, happiness, wellness, and all good things, and always be kept safe. Namaste, my friends. God bless.